Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Over the past few weeks, I've been thinking about my grandmother Sylvia, Zichrona Livracha, who came to this country as an immigrant and grew up here in the United States before women even had the right to vote. A generation later, I reflect on my mother, June, Zichrona Livracha, her journey, fighting for the ERA and spending many years donating to Planned Parenthood and causes related to reproductive rights. A generation later, I find myself in awe and impassioned by their legacies, and at the same time pained by the backward steps taken to rescind the brave and revolutionary work of them and countless others. For the past few weeks, our Friday evening services have been filled with incredible, beautiful celebrations of community. Our Intro to Judaism and our adult B'nai Mitzvah students have taught, they have led, and they have inspired us. Their journey into Jewish life and learning encapsulates a tapestry of history, ritual, ethics, and contemporary issues. The clergy took a pause these last few weeks at our Shabbat services to allow space to honor these experiences and to immerse ourselves in their teaching. And on this Shabbat, I want to honor the work of my grandmother, the work of my mother, and the countless others who spent time and energy dedicated to ensuring that our religious freedoms are sacrosanct and that the trust in women's autonomy over their own bodies be honored. Tonight I share with you the wisdom of our tradition and the Torah of reproductive freedom. The core text in our Jewish tradition as to the question on reproductive rights comes from Exodus 21, verses 22 to 25, and I quote when we learn the following: "When two or more parties fight, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact. The payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise." For almost 2,000 years, our tradition has concluded from this text, along with mounds of subsequent commentary, that fetal life is not equivalent to human life outside of the womb. Hence, our tradition permits abortion and even requires it in order to preserve the life and health of the mother, which can also include significant threats to a mother's psychological and emotional well-being. Two important clarifying understandings come from this passage. The first, our tradition does not equate abortion with murder. Full stop. The second, our tradition does not equate fetal life with human life outside of the womb. Full stop. Our tradition has never, ever been cavalier about our bodies, and in this instance, it keeps its focus on the life, the health, and the agency of the mother. Too often, discussions around abortion see only the ultrasound and fail to see the living, breathing woman having to make this difficult decision. In response, our reform movement has been at the forefront in support of women's reproductive right for decades. The National Federation of Temple Sisterhoods, now known as the Women of Reform Judaism, passed a resolution on sexuality education and contraception, are you ready? In 1935. And in 1965, they passed another one on reproductive rights, the first of our movement. Ever since, our Reform Jewish movement has stood as a champion for both religious freedom and the trust in a woman's choice to make that decision. That trust extends to a recognition that restrictions to reproductive rights disproportionately impact low-income individuals and people of color in particular. In this vein, the Jewish mandate for reproductive rights and reproductive choice is not simply a woman's justice issue, it is a human justice issue. Over the years, my colleagues and I of different genders have consoled victims of sexual assault forced to carry a child. We have counseled when an employer denies birth control coverage, even when millions of women rely on birth control pills for reasons having nothing to do with preventing pregnancy. We have stood as witness when deliberate, debilitating obstacles prevent a woman from receiving routine and medically necessary reproductive health care procedures. And we also lend support when others have been stripped of the ability to make a personal medical decision because a far-off politician had already decided it for them. Within our tradition, some of our most historic battles for women's rights were achieved as a result of strategic allied partnerships. And one of the earliest examples occurs in the book of Deuteronomy. The 5 daughters of Zelophehad advocate for their right as women to claim their deceased father's property. Their lawful inheritance of the land would solve an apparent loophole in Israelite land ownership. When a father with no male heir passes, to whom does this land belong? The 5 daughters justifiably argued to Moses that the land should belong to them. And because Moses viewed their plight as a critical human issue and not as something trivial, he immediately took the matter up with God. Soon after, the first law granting women the right to own land was established. Notably, the daughters recognized that they could not go at it alone. They needed Moses and his power, his privilege, and his position as a male leader in their society. I realize I stand in front of you tonight on this Shabbat evening as a cisgender male rabbi. In our ongoing struggle for reproductive rights, we need my voice and many others to step across gender lines. Particularly, we ignore instances of male leaders using their power, their privilege, their positions, and yes, their pulpits to create sacred safe spaces for the voices of women or other marginalized individuals to be heard. This partnership is crucial not just because people of all genders need access to reproductive health care, but also because that access is not currently equal, and we have a Jewish mandate to act. On this Shabbat, one that precedes a march on Washington for the Jewish rally for abortion justice this coming Monday, we hear a clarion call to remain laser-focused on how the wisdom of our tradition guides our steps in our response to what we call kavod habriot, the respect for individual dignity. This same sanctity underscores the vital need for medically accurate sexuality education, for affordable family planning services, and high-quality maternal and women's health care. We should set our sights on our right to freedom or faith that has seemingly been degraded into a political soccer ball. In our Beth Israel community, we must continue the sacred work of those that came before us to build and cultivate loving spaces that celebrate all parts of one's life cycle, all journeys of struggle to the journeys of joy. And we are committed to doing so and hope that you will add your voice and gifts of heart and advocacy in the days, weeks, and months that are ahead of us. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, as together we say, Amen.